just to back up, do you think Juno is a film that we could have made here?
We could have made Juno here. There's no doubt in my mind. We in fact, we did make it here. We made it in Vancouver, I think, and Canadians were heavily involved in Big Fat Greek Wedding and some other films that were not officially Canadian. But if the screenwriter or the director goes to an American producer and says, "Here, finance my movie," then you lose the ability to call that a Canadian movie for many purposes, including the tax laws of Canada and Telefilm Canada.
You touched briefly on co-production there, and that's one thing that I wanted to talk about. We were at the Real World Top 20 when you were speaking there, and there's someone who asked a question about a first-time producer, and I want to do a co-production. And you shot them down. Can you tell us a bit about what that endeavor is to actually do a co-production?
International treaty co-productions tend to be quite complicated, and it requires the help of a lawyer, and actually a lawyer in two countries, so not only Canada but in the treaty country. It requires a very sophisticated level of knowledge in financing and also in budgeting, because in order to fit within the guidelines, you need to match the level of creative contribution with the level of financing. And the rules are quite complicated. So I tend to encourage a novice filmmaker who comes to the office and says, "I want to make a Canada-Australia co-production as my first film, and it's going to be a $10 million film." I do tend to discourage that, and I say to them, why don't you try something a little more manageable for your first film and stay close to home, make it as 100% Canadian content, and let's see how you do with a smaller film before you embark on something that's so challenging.
What are those percentages to qualify? Is it, I know it's 20%. Can you talk a bit about
well,
what the breakdown is?
Each treaty between Canada and the other country is a little bit different, but in general, the minimum for a minority co-production is 20%. So it could be a 20-80 co-production, it could be a 70-30 co-production, it could be a 50-50 co-production, or any other combination you can think of, but it tends not to go below 20%.
What's the difference between an official co-production and a co-production?
Official co-production means that you've used one of the treaties between Canada and another country, and there are more than 50 of them. So that would be an official treaty co-production. The word co-production is used more informally to mean different things. So for example, there's such a thing as a co-production between an Ontario producer and a British Columbia producer, and that we call an interprovincial co-production. Then there are also films that are Canadian productions, but they do have an element of financing from another country. So for example, there might be a buyer in the US or a sales agent in the US or in England or another country that believes in your vision when you start, and although that person does not have creative control, they are entitled in their capacity as a co-financier. They're certainly entitled to have a say over certain of the elements of your production.
Looking at the future, the next 5-10 years, what are your hopes for the Canadian film industry?
Well, my personal hope is that I've been doing this for about 4 years, and I would like to see every filmmaker who I've given their first opportunity to have their second and maybe their third opportunity, or maybe fourth, during the next 5 years. So that's my personal hope. In addition to that, I want to continue to keep finding a new generation of emerging filmmakers and make sure that those people have the same shot at success as people like the people involved in Away From Her and Defendor and Suck and all of these other movies that we're very proud of. Can't wait.